Hello, everyone, and welcome to Internship Week. Today, we have Danielle Ruger-Moralski will be here. She's here to share information about micro-internships and Parker Dewey. So we're going to launch our poll first to see what you already know. I love this part.
It's good to know we've got one expert in the group.
I think I know who that is.
Oh, we've got a couple of them. Good stuff. Hopefully I meet up to expectations and their existing knowledge.
Okay. Just a couple more folks. If you'll fill out the poll and just a couple more. Okay, so let's take a look. What do we have? We have the majority, 66%, don't know a thing. So they don't know anything about it. So that's exciting to know. And then 28% have a little bit of knowledge. And then we have a couple of people, and I believe those are probably our staff members that have a great deal of knowledge. So that's very good information. All right. Okay, so Danielle is an advocate of equitable and accessible pathways from college to career and strives to make that goal a reality as a part of the team at Parker Dewey, LLC. Parker Dewey makes it easy for companies to get on-demand support by engaging college students and recent graduates in flexible, paid, professional projects known as micro-internships. A graduate of Baldwin-Wallace University's Digital Media and Design program and Kent State University's Masters of Higher Education program, Danielle joined the Parker Dewey team in early 2022 after 5 years of working in career services at multiple higher education institutions. When not supporting early career talent, she enjoys gardening, illustrating children's books, and volunteering at her local animal shelter. Thank you and welcome, Danielle.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction. Now, as you may have guessed from my bio in the animal shelter, I do have a couple of critters running around here, so I apologize in advance if they interrupt anything. But I am so excited to talk to you all about micro-internships today. I see we've got a lot of folks that don't know anything, so I'm really pumped to get that information out there. But before we start talking about exactly what micro-internships are, first want to talk about some of the reasons why Parker Dewey created micro-internships in the first place. So what we have on the screen are some examples of some challenges some students let us know they were facing. As you read those, if you resonate with those, feel free to let us know in the chat. If you have different challenges that you're facing in engaging experiential learning, feel free to highlight some of those in the chat as well. For example, when I was in my undergrad, I didn't have reliable transportation, and that made it really difficult for me to be able to get a traditional internship. Some challenges that other folks have, like you can see on the screen, maybe you're not sure of what you want to be doing, so you're hesitant to commit an entire semester to an internship when you're like, well, that's a big commitment. I only get so many of these. Maybe you're a student athlete or you're already working a job that you can't just afford to quit to take on a traditional internship. The scheduling is really difficult. Maybe you're finding some opportunities, but those opportunities are unpaid, and you're looking at the financial reality of things and going, that's just not going to work out. Maybe you're first gen, or this is your first time doing any type of professional experience, and you're trying to figure out how all these things work and want to do it in a way that's not quite as intimidating upfront as that first full internship. Well, the good news is micro-internships help address all of these challenges. So I know the chat was pretty quiet. Despite the chat being quiet, I imagine there are a few of you that resonate with these struggles. So thank you, Genesis, for clarifying resonating with needing experience. So let's dig in now that we've talked about some of those challenges and establish what micro-internships are, so then we can talk about how they help with those challenges. So a micro-internship, as opposed to your traditional internship, and don't get me wrong, we love those too, but there are some differences. A micro-internship is a project-based experience. So instead of having to do a full semester, committing your full fall, spring, summer, whatever it is, a micro internship is project based. So as soon as you complete whatever the project is, you are done with that micro internship. And we want to make it clear these are real world projects. So at Parker Dewey, we ask companies, what are some things you have on your to-do list that are important but not the best use of your time? And that's really a sweet spot for micro internships. Now, normally we see these projects take somewhere between 10 and 40 hours, but there's nothing magic about those numbers. Typically, we don't see any that are smaller than that, but we have seen larger projects as well. Now, we want to make sure that these are accessible. So we had that example before, maybe you're finding opportunities, but they're unpaid, and that's just not financially realistic. Well, to combat that, we have made sure that every single project on the Parker Dewey platform is paid, because we believe you should be paid for the work that you're doing. And again, these are real projects. So they are paid based on the project, not based on the number of hours, but based on the project. So if you need a little bit of extra time, you're learning something for the first time, there's no fault in taking a little bit longer. Or if you are a little bit more experienced, you get something done a little bit quicker than expected, you'll still get that full payment amount. And I see someone saying, yes, currently a full-time employee, half-time master's student, difficult to find anything that will fit around your schedule. Definitely resonate with that. In fact, we have success stories too from master's students who have used Parker Dewey as well. Now, I already mentioned, but I want to clarify again, these are all professional experiences. So there are other places out there where you can find side hustles like, I need someone to walk my dog, or I need someone to paint my fence. And there's nothing wrong with those types of side gigs. I love walking a dog myself. But the types of opportunities you will find on Parker Dewey are those that you would be assigned if you were in a traditional internship, or maybe even a new full-time hire. It's just that instead of having to make that longer-term commitment, you get to try the company out with just that one project first. And we like to make it clear that these are accessible too, because the vast majority of the projects that you will find on Parker Dewey are going to be remote, meaning you can do these from anywhere you have a reliable Wi-Fi connection. So for students who struggled like I did with a lack of reliable transportation, this really eliminates that barrier. We also have projects from all different types of industries, all different types of departments. We'll talk about best practices for making sure you get the best Parker Dewey experience possible, but just keep in mind, we see different things pop up every day. So if you don't see something when you log on today that is of interest, keep logging on, because those opportunities change quickly. And again, we see stuff from all different areas. So scooting right along, we've talked about what micro-internships are. I want to make sure I really reiterate what those benefits are, because we talked about those challenges at the beginning. So I'm going to make it super clear how this could help you perhaps get that first experience or make it work with your schedule. So first up, we've got that accessibility. Like I said, the vast majority of these projects are going to be remote, allowing you to do it from anywhere you have a reliable Wi-Fi connection. So if I can see, let's see, I think you all don't have the opportunity to raise hands, but if anyone else in the chat also grew up in a small town like I did, maybe you're spending your spring break or your summer break or your winter break in some place that doesn't have a lot of opportunities. Well, that accessibility to be able to work with the company from across the country can come in really handy. You're also getting real experience. So again, these are not simulations. This is not a what would you do if. This is a real project that you're going to be able to add to your resume. Depending on your industry or what you're looking to do, maybe you're even going to be able to add it to a portfolio, because again, real experience. Another nice point about these in terms of the accessibility is they're deadline driven, and we'll dig into what those deadlines look and how to find them on the platform. But as long as you are able to figure out a schedule to check in with your micro-internship supervisor and you meet those final deadlines, the rest of the time that you're working on the project is really up to you for the vast majority of these projects. So it's not like a traditional experience where it's like you have to be in this specific place at this specific time with your butt in this specific seat. No, it is you are able to work on it when you have the time, as long as you meet those deadlines. And it's not that long since I was on a campus working with college students. For some of you, I know that may be 3 a.m. And if that works, that works. Now, again, real projects. So you are going to be working with real companies, and every micro-internship supervisor you have is another addition to your network. This can be a great opportunity for those of you who may not be sure about what you want to do to explore various career paths. And there are also companies that are using micro-internships as a way to audition for longer-term roles. So let's say a company hires Erin for a micro-internship. Erin does a fantastic job. That company may say, well, based on this, we want to offer Erin a traditional internship or a full-time role. And I know I mentioned it before, but I want to mention it again because it is important. Every single project on the Parker Dewey platform is paid. So you may be thinking, okay, I want to make sure though, can I actually engage in these experiences? So here are the qualifications. As long as you meet these things, you are able to apply and engage in a micro-internship. Because micro-interns are independent contractors, we do have to make sure that everyone is at least 18 years old. We also are open to both students and recent graduates. So if you're a senior thinking, okay, I don't have a lot of time left, you can certainly do a micro-internship before you graduate, but keep in mind that you can do micro-internships after you graduate too. Evan, you've just missed that micro-internships are great, but we're going into the details now. So recent graduates can do these. There's never going to be a point where we're going to say, oh, you graduated too long ago, we're going to kick you off the platform. But we'll make it clear that you're probably not going to find these projects as valuable when you're an established professional as you will now. And companies who are on Parker Dewey typically looking to engage current students or recent graduates. So you'll find that right now is when your applications are probably going to get the most amount of attention. We're also open to international students as long as they have appropriate work authorization. For any international students that are here, we encourage you to talk to International Student Services or whatever the name of that office is on Cal State Northridge's campus to say, hey, I'm interested in micro-internship. Should I use CPT? Should I use OPT? What's the best way to go about this? So if and when you are selected for a project, you know what to do and are ready to go. We are also open to undocumented students as long as you have a valid ITIN. So as you can see, lots of accessibility in terms of who can do these opportunities. So let's talk now about how it works. It really is as easy as 1, 2, 3. We try to make this process very simple because, like I mentioned before, micro-internships tend to move very quickly. But before we dig into those 3 steps, I want to take a quick second to reiterate what Parker Dewey's role as all of this is. And Parker Dewey, at the core, we're the micro-internship people. We're the folks behind the scenes making sure this is as successful as possible, both for you and for the companies you're working with. So the first step we're doing to make sure that's the case is we're vetting all these projects. And when we're vetting the projects, we're really asking ourselves 2 questions. Question number 1, is this project professional? Like I said before, is it the same type of project I would be assigned if I were in a traditional internship, or maybe even a new full-time hire? The other question we're asking is this project compensated appropriately? Now, when you are doing a micro-internship through Parker Dewey, something that's interesting is even though you will be working directly with the company that's hosting the project, you are actually an independent contractor hired by Parker Dewey. So we are here in the background to make sure everything's running smoothly. And that means when you put this on your resume, you'll list as an independent contractor Parker Dewey. It means if you have administrative questions about something going on, that can come to Parker Dewey. It also means that when you get paid, you are paid by Parker Dewey. And then again, we want everyone to be successful. So we have a lot of support materials prepared, ready to share, and excited to support you with throughout your micro-internships. So let's get in now to these 1, 2, 3 steps I don't know if y'all are fans of multitasking. I know I certainly am. So I encourage you, if you do not already have a Parker Dewey account, or even if you have created one before, but you think that your profile could use some updating, now is a perfect time to go to the link in the chat and hit this Apply for Micro-Internships button. And before I do that, I see we've got a question. How much are you expected to know in order to be able to complete these projects? This is a great question. So before I dig in, I want to answer that. Some companies are using these projects with different goals. So there are some, usually smaller companies, that are literally just looking for on-demand project support. And they think, why not have a student or recent graduate do it if they're equipped and capable? Those companies are probably going to be looking folks that have a little bit of a higher level of expertise or just ready to dig in there and get the project done. Other companies are using micro-internships as a way to engage talent earlier and to expand their talent pipelines. So these companies might be willing to do a little bit more coaching, a little bit more showing you how to do things, because their whole goal is to engage students earlier, build relationships, like I said, build that type pipeline to potentially having you as a full-time hire later. Oh, I see we've got some questions. I love it. All right, will you be going over career fields these micro-internships are targeted towards? Not only just talking about it, but I will show you some of the examples that are there today. But it's not an exhaustive list because we really do see opportunities from every different type of field, every different type of department. How many projects are we allowed to take on one after another? There is no limit. So if you are submitting successful applications, and we'll talk about what makes a great application, you could do a ton of projects. For example, and I'll refer to our success stories throughout the presentation, we have one student who has done 18 micro-internships. This is Tegan. She used some of the money that she earned with her micro-internships to buy a puppy, and I just like to share that because her puppy is really cute. So there is no limit, and you can do multiple micro-internships at the same time if your schedule allows for it. And then would I recommend using your CSUN email for your profile? I'm going to answer with a caveat if you check it regularly. So I'm going to assume you do as a good CSUN student, but whatever you use to set up this profile, make sure it's an email address you are checking often. It is heartbreaking when someone gets selected for a micro-internship and then they end up having to be deselected because they didn't respond to the email letting them know quickly enough. So personal or CSUN, either is fine. You can update it at any time, but you just want to make sure you're checking the email address you use regularly. And these micro-internships are available year-round. So spring break is coming up. You could potentially engage in one during spring break. You can engage in one during the academic year. You can engage in one during the summer. You can engage in one halfway during the summer, halfway during the academic year. It really depends on your availability and when the companies are posting the projects. All right, I am caught up on questions. So we are going to show you what it looks like to set up this profile. So you are going to hit this view apply because that's what we want to do. We want to be viewing and applying for these opportunities. And it's going to ask you for a little bit of basic information, your first name, your last name, your email address. Again, this can be your CSUN email address, or it can be a personal one. You're going to create a password, agree to terms of use. Now, you can check these out. Highly recommend whenever you're creating any account to check those things out. But you will get a reminder of what those are if selected for a micro-internship. And then you will hit create my account. Now, to keep me from having about 1 million student Parker Dewey accounts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into my student account and I'm going to review the profile from there. And the information in that profile is going to be in a slightly different order than when you're going to put it in when you're first creating an account, but overall, it's going to be the same information. So here we go. I am logging into this profile. And to start, I'm just going to review the information that is required before you're able to start looking at opportunities. When you're setting up your account, it's going to ask you about your current location and your hometown. So if you are paying attention, you're probably thinking, okay, lady, you just told us that most of these are remote. Why do they care about our location? Well, the reason is there are a number of companies that, like I mentioned, are using this to audition for longer term roles. So for example, if they say, okay, we want to select someone that could potentially engage in our in-person internship later, having this information is helpful for the companies. It's certainly not relevant for every project, but it's relevant for enough that we request that information. I also want to make it clear when we're asking about your hometown, if you return to your hometown on your winter breaks, your spring breaks, all that good stuff, then hometown is indeed what we're looking for. But what we're kind of really looking to know is where you spend those breaks. So if you currently spend that time somewhere other than your hometown where you grew up, then you might want to consider changing that to something else, to wherever you spent those breaks again. How did you get to this page after creating your account? If you created your account for the first time, it's probably going to have put you into this dashboard. You can go back and forth from the dashboard to go, hi, your name, profile right there. And from this profile, you can go back to dashboard. So hopefully that answers that question for Evan. If it doesn't, let me know in the chat. We're going to go back to talking about the things you have to have in your profile. The next piece that is required is this education section. So this is where you're going to be able to put so many of y'all. The University of California, Northridge, if I can get it in there, right? Or no, it's Cal State. I'm so sorry. And I can't spell. There we go. So this is where you're going to put in CSUN. Now we do have things preloaded, so you'll have to make sure it matches. Again, so sorry for my faux pas. I know it's CSUN, my bad. And then you'll want to hit your save. I know, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Hit your save. I hope I haven't created an issue. And the reason that that is required is because companies have the ability to feature projects exclusively to certain schools. And we want to make sure that you're able to see any and all projects that are accessible to you. So by making sure you have that education information in there, you might see some projects that are featured to you. The other piece that is required is this demographic section. So we collect this information because part of our goal at Parker Dewey is to create a more accessible and equitable way to go from that college to career. And I want to make it clear, the companies aren't seeing what you put in this information. If you don't want to share it, you can always say prefer not to disclose. But again, companies aren't going to see this information. It just allows us, Parker Dewey, to know on the back end how effectively we are meeting our goals. So I see the question where ask first generation, are they asking first generation in the US or first generation college student? We are referring to first generation college student. So are you the first in your family to attend college? Great question. All right. And that is about it in terms of what is required to start looking at opportunities. Now you'll notice here from this demographic section, we don't see any opportunity to go back to the dashboard because that will only appear if you are on this profile piece. Excuse me, I have very squeaky hiccups. Or on this preview piece, you'll see this back to dashboard link up here. So if you give that a click, this is what allows us to go back and start looking at those projects. So for example, I mentioned that by having your institution listed, you might see some featured projects. So this is a project that is available to you all, but is not available to everyone. So this is an example. Those will pop up here. Underneath that, you will see all open micro-internships. This is where you will see micro-internships that are open to everybody. Now, before I start digging into actually looking at the projects, I first want to address something up here at the top. And you will notice that we do not have a lot in the way of filters. Most specifically, we do not have filters, for example, for major. And while this may seem like an oversight, it's actually very intentional. And to explain why, I'm going to highlight one of our many success stories. So this is, I got to find her. Where are you at, success story? I'm looking for Claire. Somebody stop me if you see Claire. There she is, right there. So this is Claire Telfer. She was a chemical engineering major, but she was very open about the ways her skills could be applied to different micro-internships. She saw a project management micro-internship, and she said, you know, on the surface, that has nothing to do with my major, but I'm kind of interested. Let me apply for it. And not only did she get the micro-internship, but she ended up really enjoying it. She found she really enjoyed organizing. She liked seeing the projects and tasks from the big picture. And the company also really enjoyed her and ended up offering her a full-time role. So she's now working full-time remotely for this company. She's got to go back and spend some time with her family in Kentucky. Last time we talked, she was going to go learn how to ski in Colorado during the winter, because again, full-time remote. She's living that life. She can do that. Point is, she's living her best life. And those are the types of matches that we don't see if we have filters for things like major. Adi, I'm going to get to that affiliations question in just a second, but I want to make sure you know I saw it. So that is why, oh, don't apologize. I love the question. That is why we have all of these or do not have a lot in the way of filters, because it's very easy for you to scroll through and see the different projects. And if you see something that just by its name is kind of interesting to you, again, super easy to hit that details. And you'll notice that there aren't an overwhelming, there's certainly a good number, but not an overwhelming number of micro-internships on any given day. And that's because these projects move very quickly. So for example, you'll notice the start dates on these in a couple of days, in a week. They're all coming rather soon. So that's why the students who are most successful on Parker Dewey tend to be the ones who log in very regularly so they can see all of those opportunities. I think one of the most common mistakes we see from students using Parker Dewey is they might log on one day, not see a project that's of interest for them that day, and then go, oh, I guess this platform isn't for me, or it doesn't have the type of opportunities I'm interested in. And again, that's a mistake, because what you see today is going to be different tomorrow, is going to be different the next day. So let's take a look at how to dig into what these projects are. Let's say that you are interested. Let's take a look at doing some scrolling here. Interested in doing a video recap. You're like, okay, I've got some video skills. Let's see what this is about. Over here is where I would recommend looking first. You will see, actually, I'm going to pick a different one because this is a rather short project. So let me pick a different example. Let's have this one where they're looking for someone with help for social media development and website development, those kind of things. This is a more normal, what we tend to see in terms of project hours. Every once in a while, you will see a small one, but this is a little bit more standard. You'll see the anticipated start date here. Now, you may notice what they have for this start date is actually today. So I want to highlight, sometimes you may even see a start date that is in the past. And what that means is when the company posted the project, that's when they were hoping for it to kick off, but things may not have panned out. If that start date is past, we have reached out to them and we've said, hey, are you still planning to select someone for this project? And as long as the project is still up here, that means they've said, yes, we are. We just don't know when we're selecting yet. So I share that to say it is worth your time applying to projects, even if that start date is past. They'll also let you know when they would like the project to be due. So in this case, we've got about 2 weeks. This is an estimated 20 hours, but again, you're paid on the project, getting that completed as opposed to the hours, but we ask the companies to give you a ballpark just so you have an idea for the sake of your schedules. It will tell you whether it's on-site or remote. And as mentioned, the vast majority of these are remote. And then you see what you will be paid if selected for the project. So if you read all that, you read about what they're looking for. They need some help with website development using Squarespace. If you're like, oh, I'm familiar with that, or, I've used other web services, I think I could figure that out. I know some things about social media. Sometimes they'll say something like this, where they've clarified, if you happen to be in the area, there may be an opportunity for further work. You can say, all right, I'm interested. Let's apply for this project. Now, there is always going to be this first question. Why do you think we should select you for this opportunity? And we're going to talk about what makes a good answer. If there are additional questions and what those questions are, it is up to the company. So a lot of companies will make their decision based entirely off of a combination of your profile and your short answer response. These are short answer responses right here. Now, companies do have the ability, if you've applied to their project, to message you, to ask follow-up questions, to request an interview, and some companies do that. But again, a lot of companies will just very quickly say, okay, this response resonates with me, the profile looks good, select. And I share that because I want to make it very clear how important making sure your profile and your application responses look good are. Because in a lot of cases, it will be your only opportunity to make an impression. So that's why we're going to spend the rest of our time making sure that you know how to make your profile and your responses look spectacular. So we are going to do a little bit of a recap first to make sure I've covered all the information. I'm going to catch myself up with the chat. Will the department section indicate the field of study? Not necessarily the field of study, that's the department at the company. So for those who are wondering what that's referring to, you can see in these projects, the department. So that's the marketing department at the company. The department is their graphic design. There's some software development. So this is a project that may overlap with both. So this is up to the company, what they decide to put there, but it's not saying you should apply to this if you are in this specific type of major. It might resonate with you if that's your major, but again, we encourage you to think about projects as, do I have an interest in this? Do I have some skills or some transferable skills or experience that might relate to this? Not, does this align specifically with my major? Because if you only think about your major, then you might miss out, like that Claire Tell, for example, the chemical engineering major, you might miss out on some projects that are actually a really great fit for your personality and your skills. I see, what if we don't know our exact graduation date? If you don't know your exact graduation date, then you can go ahead and ballpark it. As long as you are in the same month, no one's going to get, upset or anything about that. So no worries about that. And this is my colleague Peekaboo. She likes to help me with my presentations sometimes. She's not as mean as she looks. All right, so scooting right along here, going to go back. Have I seen any internships surrounding psychology? Yes, we have seen projects from all different types of fields. Now, this doesn't include information from all of them, but just to give an example, I think this was, is she a psychology major? So this is an example of a psychology major who engaged in a micro-internship that she might not have expected from her career, but it actually ended up leading to a full-time role. So I'm going to share this in the chat. All these success stories, if y'all want to go through, I want to make it clear, we have a lot more out there that we just haven't had time to write about. But this gives some examples from real stories, real students about the breadth of opportunities on Parker Dewey. So like I said, want to do this recap. We have talked about how to create your account. We have talked about why we require the things that we require, the location, as well as your school. Now, if you are an international student, make sure when you're setting up your account that you check that box. Again, these are open to international students, but by checking that box, it just allows us, if you get selected, to be aware so we can make sure we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure that you are meeting that criteria. We've got the demographics, and this is where, I forget who asked the question, Adi or Addie, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but this is where we're going to talk about that affiliation section and what it means. Because Parker Dewey has partnerships with a number of different organizations that have goals for helping various demographics find their footing in the workforce. So in the link that I just put in the chat, you can check out some of these organizations. Each one of these logos is a link, and you can learn more about that organization and their goals. And you might find that you qualify to list that organization as an affiliation. So the affiliation section is here on profile, and then right down here at the bottom, affiliations. So for example, if I realized, I think we had someone talking about being first generation, there are some organizations that are intent on supporting first generation students. So you might click on one of these, you might realize that that is an affiliation that applies to you, so you can add that affiliation to your profile. There are also some general ones that might apply. So for example, if you are a student athlete, you could add that. If you're an honor student, you could add that. And the reason I encourage you to see if you qualify for any of these affiliations or to add these affiliations, if you do, is because just like companies can feature projects to specific schools, they can also feature projects to specific affiliations. So for example, there might be a company that says, we know we want to work with a student athlete for this project because we know they have the time management skills, the collaboration skills that we're looking for. So in short, adding these affiliations, if applicable, might unlock more opportunities. Can we add affiliations after creating the account? You most certainly can. You can go back and forth, as mentioned, from this profile back to dashboard. And then from the dashboard, you can go hi name to profile, and you can make changes to any section in this profile. In fact, we're going to be talking about changes that I recommend making to your profile to make sure that it stands out. This is what we just highlighted. Again, being able to go back and forth. So from profile or preview, you'll see this link. And you can go back from the dashboard. You can hit hi my name and then hit profile. So that's how you go back and forth. And now let's talk about those tips for success, starting with your profile section. One of the first things we're going to recommend you do, and I know that I am lacking here, so do as I say, not as I do, is make sure that you are adding a professional photo. So a photo that has a solid color background or a nature background, just making sure that your face is well lit, typically should just be your face. Now, if for some reason you are not comfortable adding your photo to your profile, and that's the case for some folks, and that's okay, what you can do is perhaps add a square logo of CSUN. Maybe you can add a logo that indicates what types of projects you're interested in, but just taking a moment to customize that to show that you've taken the effort to personalize it. I see the question from Brian about this is after we graduate. Could you clarify what this is? I'm afraid I'm a little lost, but I want to make sure I answer your question. All right, the other piece we want to make sure we have here is a personal statement. So I don't know about all y'all, but I like formulas. When I'm getting started with something, a blank box can be a little overwhelming. So a formula that I tend to encourage folks, and it doesn't have to be this exactly, but it can be helpful to get you started, is to start thinking about an adjective that genuinely describes you, but is also relevant to the types of projects you want to engage in. So for example, if you're interested in doing some projects with social media management, that's going to involve someone who's pretty organized because there are lots of assets. So organized could be a great adjective. You don't want to include adjectives like, for example, nice, because that's not really saying anything unique about you. It's also kind of assumed that even if you're not genuinely nice, you'll fake it for the sake of professionalism. So you want to make sure, again, you're using adjectives that not only genuinely describe you, but also have some relevance to the types of projects you want to do. The next thing you're going to want to do is to add a strength or maybe some experiences, something that helps you stand out. So for example, if you're in computer science and you are looking to do some projects, maybe you'll list a couple of coding languages you're familiar with. If you're interested in event planning or public relations, maybe you could say with experience writing press releases, that kind of thing. Then the next part of the formula, and this is optional, but maybe you want to add a goal. Why are you using Parker Dewey? So maybe you're a first-year student and your goal here is to explore career paths. Perfect. Include that. Maybe you have a very targeted goal. Maybe you're looking to expand your experience related to communications or related to public relations or related to preparing for pre-med. Whatever it is that you're looking to do, you can add that goal. So putting that in the chat, I see we've got a question about student with an ITIN. Is that considered not U.S. citizen? If you do not have U.S. citizenship, then go ahead and check that box. Great question. All right, so let's look at some examples of this formula in play. And as I'm looking at some examples, if anybody wants to put their own personal statement in the chat, please do not hesitate to do so. So let's look here. Somebody said they are a focused, diligent, critical thinker, familiar with Python and Java, and they were seeking coding, IT, finance, and/or security projects. So they were open to a few things, but they very clearly listed those things. Another example, somebody used their adjective communicative, they're a political science major, their skills were skilled in outreach and public speaking with experience in law and business marketing, and they said they were seeking additional marketing experience. We'll give a third example here. Someone said, I'm an analytical, organized, and proactive economics major with experience and a certificate in data and analytics, looking to build experience. So you can see all those examples, and that's a great question in the chat about how long we would recommend the personal statement being. I would recommend no longer than 1, maybe 2 sentences max. Typically, this one statement is going to be all you need. And it's also going to be all you're allowed, because even though we don't have something notifying you here, that's going to change in the future, there is a character limit. So if you're working on your personal statement and you're hitting save, it's buffering, it's not letting you, there's a good chance you've hit that character limit and you're going to want to shorten up that personal statement. So we can see here, we've saved the personal statement, and this is where we're going to start looking at that preview tab. And this preview tab allows you to see what companies see when you apply for their projects. So let me scoot this out here just a little bit, get some better visuals. So you can see the company is going to see right here up top, this personal statement is a great, short, succinct way to just tell the company a little bit more about you. Something else you are going to want to do is make use of this highlighted experience section. So this highlighted experience we recommend making use of because, again, if we look at this preview, you can see that highlighted experience, just the name and the title, but that highlighted experience will show up right here with what the company sees right away when they look at your profile. Now, you also have an opportunity and are highly encouraged to upload a resume. Your folks at CSUN are the ones that are going to help you put together that amazing resume. Make sure you get it reviewed. And once you do, upload it here, because we do see that folks who include a resume tend to see better chances of being selected. But the reason why you also want to use this highlighted experience section is because when we look at what companies see, if you upload a resume, they'll see a link to your resume right here, and that will open in a new window. But we want them to be able to see your highlighted experience without having to do that extra click. So this experience section isn't necessarily for every experience that might be on your resume, but this is your opportunity to highlight the experiences that are most relevant to what you want to be doing. And to be clear, this doesn't have to be like super professional, I've got a lot of experience already type of experience. This could be a class project. This could be an extracurricular project. This could be a passion project you've done on your own or with a friend. It could be a volunteer project. But if it has relevance or transferable skills to what you want to be doing, it might be a good choice to highlight in this section. I see the question about, does that mean we should upload our resume as a PDF? Yes, would recommend PDF because only PDF files will be accepted. Saving your resume as a PDF is always just a good practice as well. It's still able to be read by systems that might be looking for information. Now, to be clear, we do not use, that's known as an applicant tracking system. We don't use an applicant tracking system at Parker Dewey, but it's always just a good idea to save it as a PDF because it's going to keep your formatting intact, but it's also going to allow the information on your resume to be read. All right. In this resume section, in addition to uploading your resume, you also have an opportunity to clarify your availability, but this is also a great place if you already have a portfolio, maybe you're a design student, to highlight some of those design skills by including your online portfolio. Sorry, my cat just knocked down a clock. This is also a great place if you have a Twitter account to list that Twitter account, and a great place to list your LinkedIn. And I have literally sat in a meeting with a company who was making a decision, and he said, having LinkedIns just makes it easier since I can look at all their profiles. So highly recommend, if you don't already have a LinkedIn, to create one, because if they're like that company, it might make an impact in whether or not you're selected. And regardless, when you're selected for a micro internship, having a LinkedIn is going to make it so much easier for you to stay in contact with your micro internship supervisor, because that person is now a part of your network. It's going to allow you to see who they know, who they might be able to introduce you to, and easily request a recommendation from them. So if you don't have one already, highly recommend creating and including that LinkedIn link. Now, for folks who may have some examples of their work, but maybe you don't have a portfolio site or a GitHub or anything like that yet, you also have the opportunity to upload 1 or 2 examples of your work. So this is a great opportunity. Maybe you're a first-year student. Like I said, you haven't built a site yet, but you have a few things you want to show off. This is a place where you can upload that. Again, they'll show up as links under this document, and so the company will be able to open them in a new tab. It's not always relevant for every type of industry or every type of project, but for some folks, it's nice to be able to show off those examples. And those are the pieces that are going to make a stellar profile. So to recap very quickly, add that photo, make sure you have that personal statement, make use of this highlighted experience section, upload that resume, include any web presence you may have. And if you've got a few examples of your work that aren't on the web, this is how you can include those as well. Now, before we move on to making sure you are prepared to answer application questions super awesomely, any questions? I see we've got one from Angelica. Can you add group projects? Yes, you can. So the way I would recommend doing that, just to make sure that you're being authentic with what the experience is, you could list the organization name as the name of the class. So do you want to give me any details in the chat, Angelica, about what the class was? No worries. I know I'm asking for a lot of typing quickly, but you might say the name of the class, and then you might say, if it was a coding project, you could say coder, and then parentheses, group project. You could do the same thing for volunteer roles. You could say, engagement or outreach, volunteer role. So that's how you can make that clear to show I have this experience, but also give credit where credit is due. Perfect. So you said it was a market research class. So maybe your role was an analyst for the project, and then you can clarify group project. And then you'll want to put in all this other information. I'm just going to put it as a place in Alabama that started today and ended today. And I'm going to hit save. Oh, just kidding. I'm going to put something in there. And then I'm going to show to that preview, and you can see how that shows up right there. Market research class, analyst, group project. So if I'm the company, I know you have that experience in that now, but you also haven't misled me in any way. Hopefully that's helpful. That was a great question. Any other questions before we hop over to how to answer those questions? All right, let's talk about answering a stellar question. I'm going to put another resource in the chat real quick, though. All these tips for your profile that we just reviewed are also in our Career Launcher tutorial, which I am putting in the chat. If you just want to check on this later, or you prefer to have things written down. I know I watched a lot of Gilmore Girls growing up. You probably don't even know what that show is, but it means I talk very fast. So it's all there too, if you want that recap. We have talked about how to see available micro-internships and apply. We have talked about how to look for the details of an opportunity. Let's get into the short answer response questions. So we have a resource for you to help you think about and be strategic when answering these short answer application questions. I'm going to put this resource in the chat as well. Not the fastest typist in the world, but we are about there. There we go. And this tells you how to think about answering these questions. So the first thing we encourage you to do is look for the question under the question. And what that really means is thinking about, what does the company want to know? So for example, we talked about the fact that every single one of these projects, everyone, and as you can see, there's a wide range of different types of opportunities, are going to have that same first question: why should we select you for that opportunity? So when you're answering, even though it's the same question, that's going to be a different response for every project you apply to, because depending on what they're looking for, different skills or experiences might be relevant. So that's what we mean when we say look for the question under the question. Put yourself in the shoes of the company and think, what is going to be of interest to them? The next thing I really want to highlight, and there's some other great advice in here, but these are the things I really love to highlight, is to show, don't tell whenever possible. So there's something called the STAR interview technique that is a great tool when answering Parker Dewey micro-internship application questions. So I'm going to highlight in the chat what STAR stands for. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. So whenever possible, if you can back up a response by using this formula and describing a specific instance that is relevant to your answer, that is going to help you stand out in the company's mind. So for example, if the company, not if, this will always be there, the company asks, why should we select you for this project? We'll just look at somebody who is looking for help with an employee handbook. If you said, you should select me for this project because I have great writing skills, not a bad response, but not necessarily going to help someone stick out, right? But if you use that STAR method, say, you should select me because I have great writing skills. For example, in my whatever class, I used my writing abilities to do XYZ with these results, then that's going to give them a specific example. It's going to let them know that you are backing up your answer, and it's also going to help you stick out in their mind. So for example, for something like this, that presumably is going to involve some writing skills, you want to think, if my response or is my response helping me stand out? And you can ask yourself, I am the candidate who, and then insert something in that box. And if whatever you've inserted in that box isn't unique, then that's your indication that maybe you need to rethink the way you've responded to the question. So if you say, I'm the candidate that has good writing skills, you're probably thinking, that in itself, without an example, may not help me stand out. But if you're thinking, I'm the candidate who wrote an interesting paper in my first year English class about this topic, that, when they're going back and talking about candidates, is going to be you. So that's a way to think about answering these questions using that STAR method. So another thing you want to do whenever possible is go beyond yes or no. So for example, sometimes companies will ask, do you have familiarity with this software or this type of project? And technically you're answering if you say yes or no, but typically those that go above and beyond are going to be more likely to get selected. So even if you have that experience saying, yes, I worked with Adobe Creative Suite when I use that STAR method, describe a situation, describe the task you were assigned, the action you took, and what the results were. And even if you don't have experience with that specific thing, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not worth your time applying for the project. For example, we recently had a project where someone was looking for someone to do some mystery shopping for them. And it asked, do you have any experience mystery shopping? Well, there were those who said yes or those who said no, but those who said, while I have not done mystery shopping, I do have experience thinking about the customer experience in my market analysis, or I forget the name of the class, in my whatever class, we did a project where I ABC, XYZ, they still have a great chance of being selected because they have identified transferable experiences or skills. So in case you were like me, you're an example person, you're like, let me just see what's successful and what's not. We also have examples that you can access from that resource that I shared. So you can see both responses that were selected for projects, as well as responses that were not selected for projects. So for those that were selected, you can see, for example, this student clarified a specific source of passion. So I want to highlight too, that STAR method doesn't only have to be about experience. Maybe this would be your first experience related to whatever you're applying for. But if you can use that STAR method to explain why you are passionate about it, what's the story between why you want to do this, that is another way that can help you stand out. You can also see they highlighted specific skills, and those things probably played a role in why they were selected for that project. Alternatively, this student submitted their response in all caps. They were very focused on how this would benefit them as opposed to what they could contribute. They had spelling errors, and those things likely all played a role in why they were not selected for the project. We want to make it clear the attention to detail and the care that you apply to these short answer responses, the company is thinking that it's very indicative of what attention to detail and care you would apply for their project. So these are not intended, as you can see, these successful responses are not long. This isn't a cover letter situation, and it shouldn't take too long to do, but you want to make sure that everything's spelled correctly, that they're grammatically correct, that you've given examples where relevant, because typically those are the responses that are going to help you be most successful. So before we move on, I want to ask, are there any questions about how to respond to these application questions? Things got pretty quiet in the chat. I don't know if I lost y'all. Going once, going twice. All right.
Danielle?
Yes.
We're just about out of time. We have 5 more minutes left for the presentation. So I just need to let you know.
Perfect. I appreciate the 5-minute warning. We are right about at the right place for that. Since
Actually, you know what? I am going to launch, I'm going to go ahead and launch our survey. And then we want to make sure people have a chance to answer the survey, and then we'll go back.
Perfect. So go ahead, folks. You've got that survey. I see the request to share this in the chat. Yes, and reminder, folks, that document I shared before, you can see those examples in here.
Okay, folks, keep answering the survey. As you can see, just from the results that are popping in right now, there were so many people that didn't know anything about Parker Dewey and micro-internships, and you can see what they've learned. So we shared the results. Okay.
Perfect. I appreciate you highlighting that. And I promise, I know it seems long-winded, but we are right on track. Want to give you all this insider view of what the company sees. Just like you see opportunities, they see candidates, and they're able to hit that drop down. So again, you can see the importance of those short answer responses in your profile, because that's really what they're making their decision on. Some details on how to navigate this platform. Pretty intuitive. Opportunities, anything you've been applied for that you're still being considered for. Any projects you have been selected for but haven't finished. This is where you'll see projects you've completed, also where you have the opportunity to request feedback if they haven't given it to you yet. And like I mentioned before, if you've applied to a project, that specific company can message you about your application. This is where those messages will show up, and you will also receive an email notification to the email associated with your account. So once selected, we have a number of resources to make sure that you are successful. These are typically best suited for when you are selected, because I know you are probably more concerned about the application process right now than what would happen next steps. But just want to highlight so you're aware, you are by no means an island. We have tips and tricks and resources and templates for every step of the way, because we want to see you make a great impression both during and after the opportunity. We have checklists to help you be successful. So I already mentioned these success stories before, but encourage you to check those out. I'll put that link in the chat again so you can see the impact that these opportunities have. And I hope that y'all are going to hop on, get those profiles created, get those short answer responses submitted. And if you have any questions, feel free. I'll put my LinkedIn. Just make sure that you clarify if you request to connect that you're from this presentation, because typically I do not accept invitations unless I know for sure who you are. So with 1 minute to spare, if you have any last minute questions, feel free to pop those in. And I am just under the wire.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Danielle. Parker Dewey presentations are always jam-packed full of information. So I hope you had a chance. Obviously, we saw from the survey that you really learned from Danielle's presentation. And also remember that this presentation was live streamed and recorded and posted on the CSUN Career Center YouTube channel. So you'll have a chance to view it again if need be. If you go to Parker Dewey and you subscribe to you can subscribe to a newsletter, is that correct?
When you create your account, you'll get a monthly newsletter. Now, if your inbox is packed and you don't want to, you have the option to unsubscribe, but I would recommend staying subscribed because we share tips, tricks, highlighted projects. So creating your account means that you will get that for you.
Yeah, it's really good information that can be very helpful when you're looking for micro internships. So I encourage you to do so. Also, I wanted to let you know that so I really just want to say thank you so much to Danielle, because I really enjoy working with Parker Dewey. They're always really responsive. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. As you can see, Danielle just posted her LinkedIn. So please feel free to do so. And then finally, I would like to say at 2 p.m. we have she's going to continue answering right now before we disconnect. But at 2 p.m. we have the CSU Entertainment Alliance. There are really great paid internships through the Entertainment Alliance. And also you can sign up to participate in their webinar series where they have directors and producers and actors who participate in webinar series, and you can really learn a lot from them. And then tomorrow is Resume Makeover, and Resume Makeover is our premier resume critiquing day. So be ready for Resume Makeover. And then next week is this all internship week, all leads up to the job fair. So our career fair, spring career fair, is on March 7th. It's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We hope that you will attend. It will be on campus in the USU in the Northridge Center. So we hope to see you then, and we'll say goodbye.